The following show is brought to you in part by support from Robbins, Kaplan, Miller, and Cerisi. We don't just practice law, we make history. Online at rkmc.com.
Hello and welcome. My esteemed guest tonight is Stanislaw Skrowaczewski. He is a composer, he is a conductor, he is the longest working conductor in the world at a major level with major symphonies. And many of you know he was our Minnesota Orchestra conductor and director from 1960 to 1979.
Yes.
He is still conducting all over the world. He is still composing. And at 88, he is still the most vital of men. So it's wonderful to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is very fun to be here with you.
We met and did an interview back in 2005. So this is a lovely chance to visit again. Tell us what you are doing now. You've told me a little bit.
Well,
but you're
now
busy.
I had a very busy spring in conducting. I was twice in Europe for 3-4 weeks. I was almost 1 month in Japan. In between, of course, I had to prepare it to learn or to relearn the scores and to organize my life with trips. So now I'm back almost for 3 months to be home. And as such, I want to, not to relax, I want to finally to compose, to concentrate on myself. So this is the last event is here with you, and then I am off this world and will try to compose something.
Somewhat of a holiday from commitments so you can be creative then.
Yes, but this needs time of forgetting the music of composers that I have been conducted. You know, and it is very difficult because I love those composers. Of course, I live with this music, and this is very hard to get rid of this music from me, to concentrate on my own, in my own world of my ideas, musical ideas. But one should try always.
So you will have a few months to just work on composing.
Yes.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
One of my questions later in the interview is, how do you go about the process? But I want to hold that and go back a bit to your early days, because for those of you who didn't see the first interview, you had the most amazing childhood in terms of your musical experiences with your mother, a concert pianist.
Yes.
And you started playing the piano at 4, am I right, Stanislaw?
Right. Yeah.
And at 7, you composed a piece for
I was
the orchestra?
composing since 4, because I wanted to write something what I hear. At that time, I loved composers, classical composers from Vienna, Mozart, Beethoven, Haydn, of course Bach before. But then what I was composing was sort of enormous influence of those composers. But very quickly I was developing in the composition. I went already to late Romanticism, to Wagner, to Bruckner, and very soon to Stravinsky and 20th century in music.
And Bruckner has continued to be your wonderful companion.
Yes. I had, as a child, wonderful experience with Bruckner. When I heard, I got sick from just hearing this gorgeous music, and I will never forget this impression on being child, 6 years old child, to hear big symphony and being completely struck, paralyzed by the beauty, by the power of the symphony.
That is such a rare thing. I know some 4 and 5 and 6-year-old children, and to think what a musical genius you must have been.
No,
you don't think?
No,
I
prodigy,
wonder.
no genius.
No?
Just the genes I loved. When I was a baby, I was crawling under the piano when my mother played, but because I wanted, why under the piano? I didn't know at the time, but I wanted to hear piano. If you go under the piano, you don't hear the piano, you hear the big organ, big orchestra. It is powerful, not
the
eventually
vibrations,
dry sound of piano in the hall, but full orchestra. So I was under the piano, and then the orchestra just fulfilled what I wanted to hear, what I wanted to write, and eventually what I wanted to play for the other people as a conductor.
And you conducted an orchestra piece when you were 13. Am I remembering right?
Well, I played a piano. It was pianist at the time, but I also played the violin, flute, viola, and I played chamber music with older people, with friends of my father, doctors.
Your father was a physician.
As such, if you play chamber music with 3, 4, sometimes up to 6, 8 people, then you become automatically a conductor. You quarrel. No, I would like to do it this way. Please, why do you did this too short? And let's do it slower, let's do it faster, and so forth. So the conducting was a very natural thing to me.
So the grown-ups listened to your input and made you feel respected?
Well, if you play an instrument and with other people, chamber music, and you know the composers, the style, the scores, and you are interested in the big orchestra, so you listen to the radio, to records, you buy the big scores, and you learn instrumentation, and then suddenly later you become a real conductor. You know it already.
It's in your head, isn't it?
Yes. It is a very normal, gradual way to know the immense building of wonderful music that lasts at least three centuries brought us, especially the 18th, 19th century. Those old composers, the literature is enormous.
And living and growing up in Poland, which I don't think we mentioned, you would feel a kinship and closer to the Vienna composers, for example, than had you grown up here, for example.
And, yes, and you need to travel. You have the traveling in score. You know the music, and if you feel it and if you understand it, you are there. So Vienna and Germany as such was the first contact. Then came French music, Italian music eventually, but French music with big, I would call it the revolution of Debussy and Ravel, also hit me at certain time, and is so different from German. And then of course comes more contemporary music, going up to atonal music, and you are absolutely excited to try to write, to hear the very terrible dissonances, you know, and to feel it and to understand it, because it's not a question of dissonances, it is a question of certain logic in using those dissonances. So the great composers of 20th century, like Stravinsky, Bartok, Szymanowski, were to me great example. If you need for today a young musician that understands really music, he or she had enormous literature to help. I mean, everything is on the records these days, and
There is access that you did not have.
yeah, everything is incredible. What
You also had, and I'm jumping ahead now, but a terrible interruption with World War II. And you were just telling me
well,
about the accident when the
oh,
building
the
you were in
accident
was
with
bombed.
Hans, yes.
Tell me
I
again
was
so the
in
audience
a
hears.
little house outside on the outskirts during the bombardment, and the house got a bomb, and I tried to escape, but the wall just crumbled on me, and I fell. Fortunately, the wall hit my hands, not head or other parts of the body, and my hands were quite destroyed. So
There went your
my
piano
pianist career was off completely. But at that time, I was whatever, 18 years old. I had big doubts if I wanted to be pianist, because I wanted to compose first and eventually to conduct, because the orchestra, as a composer, the orchestra was interesting me more than just trying to get technique
than just one
enough
part, yes.
on the piano. And finally, if you compare literature, orchestral literature, or chamber music with pianistic literature, which is enormous, but there's no comparison in variety. And the greatest composers, the greatest works, to me, were written for the orchestra.
You, when in 1956, I'm not quite sure your age, I could do fast math here, but I won't even try. You won the very prestigious International Conductors
In Rome, yes.
Competition.
Yes.
And
it was very good.
that must have reaffirmed your love of conducting.
Well,
I mean, of composing, I'm sorry, and conducting.
these things are completely opposite and disturbing itself. Of course, as a composer, you'll get certain conducting, maybe better, certain understanding of big form better. But in time-wise, in energy-wise, and your inner illumination about music, it's opposite. Composing, you have to be inward, you know, to be
Go
in
inward.
you, forget everything else, and be in you. As a conductor, you are extrovert. You should be extrovert to show music, not necessarily yours, other composers, isn't it? And I loved other composers, of course, much more than than my own compositions.
Do
So
you?
I lived,
That was one of
I
my
lived
big
with
questions.
this music. And of course, as such, after conducting, it was very hard to get inside myself and ask, what is my music? Where is it? And I felt
How
that
do I
sometimes
find it?
my music is not existing because I'm so involved in music of other composers. And this is through all the life like that.
So having this time now this summer to stop conducting and just
Yeah,
focus on composing makes more sense to me now even
you see,
as I
yeah,
hear you explain this. Do you have a favorite? I mean, if you could only do composing or only do conducting, which would it be?
Well, both. I cannot say
But
absolutely
if I say
both.
you must choose,
Absolutely no. It's very hard to choose now. It's too late to choose now.
that's
First
true.
of
It's a
all.
moot question,
Yeah.
isn't it?
But it is impossible because I love both things. And, you know, I feel that I always felt that I can give something as an interpreter, something interesting.
You
From point of
challenge
view.
people as a composer.
What do you say?
You challenge people as a composer, it's been said, and people
Well,
feel you.
I don't challenge people, but as everything I do, I challenge certain things. I challenge other conductor, you know, and I'm challenged by other conductors that they do something that I say, oh, this is very good, you know.
Do you?
Especially you have the old school of conductors, very famous, and different completely, and you compare them, what they did with the same piece, and you see big differences.
How many variations on a
Yes,
theme? Huh?
and then you ask yourself, where are you in this? And this is terribly interesting. And
Do
if
you
you feel that you can give something, this is your life then.
Do you feel sometimes that you don't want to hear how other people conducted a piece because you want it to be fresh, you want to approach it very individually?
No, it is always interesting to hear other people
Okay.
to listen, but this is question if I accept this or like it or dislike it, you know, or reject it or something like that.
Explain to us how you go about getting ready to conduct a piece.
Well, I have to learn the score.
So
To
you,
learn the score more, to know more about about the composer, about epoch, well, he or she usually here lived, and I should know other compositions of the same composer, not just one symphony, but all other symphonies, other chamber music, is very important because certain composers are quite different in chamber music than in symphonic
yes,
music.
exactly.
And this gives you a full knowledge of the epoch style, and you understand better what composer wanted to say by writing the score, which as such is numb. I mean, it's dry. You have to put life into it.
How long on average, and I'm sure it is varied, you know, from piece to piece, but how long on average would you say you put into this preparation?
Well, you see, because I played as a chamber player or pianist many things as a child, and I knew, and I was interested already in the orchestra. I knew the scores. So later I knew very large repertoire already, which I should, I'm trying to relearn, but I knew it already. So the new things came gradually with, and it made that I had a very large repertoire ready.
So some of your work is review in a sense.
Well, it was very useful. For example, in Minneapolis, when I got the directorship of the Minneapolis Symphony, then I knew big repertoire, and I could play 5 seasons, programs for 5 seasons. It means almost 100 programs different.
Wow.
Not to repeat anything, you know. It was very,
That's
very,
a
very
lot
useful.
of pieces.
Yes.
Oh my. We don't have enough time, but I want to ask you also, if you are going to compose a piece, tell us a bit of what goes into that.
It is impossible to say, you know. It is question of moments of certain illumination connected with a certain type of music in your head. It could be a dream, and it could be just realistic. You can I don't know,
Do you start
shave
out with
in the bathroom and
So-
think of this. You can eat something. You can walk in the mountains and have some ideas. And then you try to develop it, to repeat it.
Does
and
it
very
come
often
from an
it is-
idea primarily?
Pardon me?
Is the idea the basis for it?
It is certain,
Or is it-
certain atmosphere, certain mood connected with certain type of, not melody, that's tones. It could be sort of melodic things or some theme, let me say. It can be more rhythmic than melodic, but then you have to rethink it to put it on paper. And very often you put it on paper and you see it is nothing. There's just nothing.
It's
Throw
not
it
what I
away.
want.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
You know,
So
it is a
disappointing
very,
then.
very mysterious process, I would say.
I talk
But-
to authors often, and they work in so many different ways. But
Yeah.
some work like this,
Well,
others
yeah,
differently.
it takes a lot of time, and then after even sometimes you're happy with a few pages, and then you go somewhere to conduct or on the trip, you come back to what you wrote, and you see
I don't
nothing.
like it
So
anymore.
you put it in the garbage can. Yeah.
But did Christina ever say, take it out of the garbage can?
Oh, you
might
knew
like
it.
it later.
Yeah, she did. She
Uh-huh.
did. She thought maybe there's something worth. Yes,
Because sometimes, well, I read that you are your own most critical critic.
one
So-
should be.
And
I,
should be,
I
yes.
wish many other composers
We're more
did the same.
critical. That's,
Yeah,
I
one
understand.
should be, absolutely. But to the point not to kill yourself, you know.
Yes, to be
Yeah.
so demanding that you can't be happy with anything.
Yeah.
That would be a
Yeah.
horrible
Yeah,
life, wouldn't it?
One has to be happy, not only happy but excited, and one has to be really in certain sort of trance, you know. Even
That inspiration trance, right?
yes, this is right.
Do you feel as you get older that your creative juices are still as active?
Well, until now, yes, and now we'll see.
And this will be the next test, the next few
Yeah.
months. I have a feeling you will come through.
Well, I don't know. It depends on many factors.
You won a wonderful award this spring, this May, the Bruckner Award.
Oh, the Bruckner Award.
Yes.
Yes, it was unexpected, but very nice. There is a Bruckner Society in America that gave some awards, some medals to some conductors. They conducted Bruckner, and not many And so I was very happy to be among very famous conductors there.
How
You know, so
exciting.
this was nice. And on my last concert, I did Bruckner 8th Symphony in last April.
Yes, I heard that.
So the secretary of the society came from New York, and after the concert gave me this wonderful medal of honor.
Oh,
They have medal done by Mr. Tsileni, probably was Hungarian, very nice in bronze, the silhouette, the profile of Bruckner.
Oh,
Yeah.
how fitting
Yeah.
fitting that you should.
But I cannot wear it, it's very heavy.
Oh, but you can hang it on the wall, right?
Yeah, hanging on the wall, yes.
I read that the BBC folks said that your interpretation of Bruckner was one of the top 10
Well,
discs of the decade.
they were very
Recently,
kind
so-
with me.
Well, we're almost out of time. We want to give the viewers a couple websites so that if you would like to look into finding out more about my wonderful guest, first of all, you can go to the Minnesota Orchestra website, minnesotaorchestra.org, and find out when he is next going to be conducting here in Minneapolis. And then there is also a new book, I've got to read it, called Seeking the Infinite by Fred Harris,
Fred Harris.
that
yes.
just came out this year.
Came last fall.
And that is a biography of your life.
It is a big book.
And you said he worked on it for 10 years, off and on
Yeah,
with
he
you?
did. Well, he was very busy with Fred Harris is conductor of MIT Orchestra. As such, he's busy
He
as a
himself
conductor.
is-
Also, he's professor, he's teacher, he's wonderful writer. A wonderful writer, born a writer. He writes some books, he has written other books.
So,
And so he's busy. And of course, he's located in Boston with MIT, so he was coming here. By the way, he got a doctorate degree in University of Minnesota.
so he's
then
local.
we met the first time because he had an interview with me connected with his doctorship.
Well, thank you so much for coming down. I have loved having a chance
so happy to
be
be
with
here.
you
Thank you,
again
Mary.
and learn more about your fascinating, wonderfully creative, with the capital C,
It's very
life.
kind of you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. We'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.